What's up, guys, and welcome back to the LoreVerse. I want you guys to understand that for the next few days, we're going to drop the fantasy stuff, and we're just going to do some Marvel MCU multiverse deep diving for the next week and some change because there's just a lot that I want to talk about, a lot that I want to get out there. Like, I've been diving deep into the MCU multiverse since Loki, and now that the Doomsday trailers really are coming out, I've had so much I wanted to tell and talk about and theorize. So we're going to take these next few days, really maybe week, maybe 2 weeks. I don't think it'll be 2 weeks though. And we're just going to go all in on this multiverse stuff. So today we are going to talk about just the whole entire multiversal situation that's going on with Captain America and in regards to his timeline. Because what if the most important timeline in the MCU isn't the sacred timeline? What if the key to saving the multiverse comes down to Steve Rogers making the hardest choice of his life? Because Avengers Doomsday isn't just about Doctor Doom, it isn't just about incursions, and it isn't just about worlds colliding. It may be about something far more personal than what we have ever thought. The timeline where Captain America chose to stay. So today I'm going to break down a few things. Why Steve Rogers created a branch timeline, why that timeline violates the very rule of the multiverse, how it mirrors really Wanda Maximoff's whole entire tragedy. And it's kind of funny how we see this pattern with like all these heroes having kids, and why Doomsday may force Steve Rogers to sacrifice something he was never meant to have. Now, this is the LoreVerse, and let's dive into this. Let's clear this up right now. Steve Rogers did not live his life with Peggy Carter in the sacred timeline. Endgame tells us clearly, if you go to that past becomes your future, which means when Steve went back and stayed with Peggy, he created a branch timeline. And this is not speculation. This is not a theory. This is not a thought that I just came up with, or Denna Nerds or any other content creator came up with. This is MCU canon. The Ancient One explains this. The TVA has confirmed this, and Loki season 1 reinforces this over and over and over. And Steve's decision, it created, number one, a timeline where Hydra still existed, a timeline where Captain America knew the future, and a timeline where global events unfolded differently. And most importantly, a timeline that should not exist. Here is the uncomfortable question, though. Why didn't the TVA prune Steve Rogers' timeline? And the reason why is because by their rules, unauthorized time travel equals a branch. Branches lead to what, guys? Incursions. And incursions, if you don't know, they destroy universes. An incursion is when two worlds collide, okay? And that's bad for the multiverse. But for some reason, Steve's timeline still survived. And there's only a few explanations I have. The first one is he was allowed because He Who Remains needed it. And I think that possibly Steve Rogers had some type of conversation with He Who Remains to get what he wanted. And maybe He Who Remains told Steve it wouldn't have an effect if he went to go live his life with Peggy. And I also believe there's no way Steve did what he did without like not talking to anyone. I even think we might see a scene in Avengers Doomsday where Steve Rogers might have possibly talked to Tony Stark back in time to maybe get some type of promise that if he went for the life he wanted to be with Peggy and to be the family man and to have kids, that the multiverse would still be fine and that he wouldn't ruin things. Or the second option, right? That timeline is just now dangerously unstable because it's been allowed to sit for so long. And in Avengers Doomsday, when the multiverse starts to collapse, this timeline is now a liability. And the reality is that like Steve Rogers broke the natural order. If you guys don't know, Steve Rogers was never supposed to have a normal life, a family, children, or a quiet ending. Captain America is a symbol, not a man. And here's the reality for all you guys. Symbols don't get happy endings. So by choosing Peggy, Steve did something insane. He chose selfish happiness over destiny. And that doesn't make him wrong, but it makes the universe unstable. Because in mythology, when heroes take what they weren't meant to have, reality demands a payment. And I think we're going to see that payment come in Avengers Doomsday. And this is where things get even more sad, because Steve Rogers' story, it mirrors Wanda Maximoff's almost like perfectly mirror to mirror. Because if we look at WandaVision, Wanda created a fake vision, fake children, and a reality that felt real to her. And when she was forced to let go, the argument was brutal. They aren't real, right? Now, imagine that logic turned on Steve Rogers. If Steve Rogers had children in that timeline, if he had a family, which we know he does, the multiverse may see them as an anomaly. a paradox, or a cosmic error. Real to Steve, but not real to reality, just like Wanda Maximoff. Now, let's get back to Avengers Doomsday. Doctor Doom is not Thanos. He doesn't wipe out half the universe. But what he does is he forces impossible choices. When we go to the comics, like Time Runs Out and Secret Wars, Doom decides what realities live, which realities die, and which sacrifices matter. And imagine this scenario. The multiverse is collapsing, incursions are spreading, and the problem can be traced back to Steve Rogers' branch timeline, and the solution is to prune it and erase it, which means Steve has to choose between saving the multiverse or saving the life he built. And unlike Endgame, there's no loophole to this. Now, Steve Rogers has always represented one thing: doing the right thing even when it cost everything. He jumped on the grenade. He crashed the plane. He stood alone against Thanos. So what's the ultimate test? Not dying, but choosing duty over love. Now, sacrificing a family that never should have existed for a universe that must, this wouldn't erase Endgame. This would honestly complete that entire story, because this decision would ripple across the MCU, right? Sam Wilson understands what the shield truly costs. Wanda's pain is reframed, not erased, right? And the multiverse gains emotional rules, not just physics. And Steve Rogers, this dude doesn't die a hero. He lives with the memory of a life that he only remembers. That's tragedy. That's mythology. And in my opinion, that's the MCU at its best. So Steve Rogers' timeline isn't a plot hole. It's really a loaded gun. And Avengers Doomsday may finally pull the trigger, because the MCU isn't asking, can heroes come back? It's really asking, what do heroes have to give up to save something? And sometimes the hardest sacrifice is a life you were never meant to have. And the hard truth is, a lot of fans think that if this theory is true, because I see some other people having some similar thoughts as mine, because I don't think I create everything on my own. I'm like, yes, I think this stuff through, but we're all covering the same stuff. We're all probably going to come across the same theories and ideas. But what I will say is, I think if this is true, that Captain America might have to sacrifice his family, I don't think Captain America does that. I don't think Steve Rogers does that so easily. I don't think Steve Rogers is just going to easily choose to do the right thing like he always has. What if Steve Rogers choosing of doing the right thing is to keep his child and try to find a way to salvage that? I'm a father. If that was me, I would do that, but I'm not Captain America. Let me not use that example. I hate when people do that. So why am I doing that? But I do think that Captain America isn't going to be the biggest fan of possibly having to sacrifice his children and his family. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Steve should be forced to erase his timeline and his family? Do you guys think that could be a possible plot? And do you think Steve could possibly be challenged by that? Or do you guys think Steve is just going to make the right answer and then get on with Avengers Doomsday fighting against Doctor Doom? Now, if you guys enjoyed this LoreVerse deep dive, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow, where we're just going to talk more MCU on Christmas Eve. Peace out.